Hello everybody, what is up? Good to see you. Back again for another stream. Thinking my stream format might probably is going to change to like every other day. Just because I've been getting kind of like more tired and worn out lately. I used to be doing like every single day at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but I'm thinking that probably just every other day might work out a little bit better for me. But good to see you if anyone's lurking already. So the day has finally come, and so have I, to Twitch. And I think inappropriate. But the RetroTINK I ordered, RetroTINK-2X, which is a line doubler for like $100. I ordered it through Castlemania Games. The same people who I ordered my HD Retrovision cables through, because HD Retrovision is run by a bunch of friggin' morons who have no idea how to run a business. And anyway, I got my RetroTINK-2X finally after almost 4 months of waiting, because it's literally one guy who makes all these things himself by hand, which is impressive. And it works amazingly well. Unfortunately, I've discovered that my HD Retrovision cables for the Sega Genesis and also the Sega Saturn have an audio problem. So basically, it's like you'll hear some popping in there. I apologize, but I just want to show off what it looks like at least, because these games look absolutely amazing. You pair up the line doubler, the RetroTINK line doubler, which is a cheaper alternative, the OSSC you may have heard of, or like the almost $400 FrameMeister. This is only like $100. You are on a huge waiting list because, like I said, it's one person making these things, but it looks fantastic. You pair these up with the HD Retrovision cables, as morons who don't know how to run a business, and this thing, and it looks amazing. So the first game I'm going to start up here is Streets of Rage 2. Oh, it looks so crisp. Like I said, you may hear some audio popping. That's just the cables here. There's an audio short. And I gotta see about if there's a way to possibly fix it. If I can get HD Retrovision to look at it, or somebody. Because it's such a shame, because these cables look so amazing for the Sega Genesis. So right now you can even hear it popping still. Let's see if I can maybe clip out the bottom. There we go. See if we can get rid of that bottom lines that are flickering. It's pretty much, from as far as I can tell by a little bit of information, like overscan on part of the Sega Genesis. And of course, soundtrack by Yuzo Koshiro, who is like one of the hugest music plagiarists ever in the video game industry. But everyone gives him a pass because he can program really well for the Sega Genesis. So unfortunately, like, I was thinking, like, crap, maybe it's the RetroTINK that's having the problems with the line popping. I plugged in my Super Nintendo, the popping goes away. So it's just these cables, unfortunately. There's some kind of short somewhere on somewhere in the audio cable itself has a short, which makes me really upset. Because these cables are not cheap at all. Castlemania Games, like I said, who I've bought mine through, are overcharging for them now. I bought them at $50 and they're now charging $65, but it is a limited time, because I mean, it's like HD Retrovision stopped making it back in July. They were hardly making them at all. And they're like, well, we need to focus on our other stuff. We don't want to mass produce our cables. And we don't want to hire people to do this stuff or anything else. So we're going to shut down making these things. It's like, there's a huge demand for this. You should probably look into, like, being a business. Demand and so forth. Let's just go with Axel. Alright, so there's some options on the RetroTINK that you have available, like a smoothing option. These buttons are kind of tricky to hit. Let me see if I can hit them from here. So that's line smoothing on, and then that's just like turns it off. So on, which is like default, and then you have smoothing, which doesn't do a whole lot, makes it a little bit blurrier. I'm not a fan of it, so I'm going to cycle back through. Here we go. And then we've got these other modes. I'm not sure what it is. It looks like you can't quite lock on to the chroma key from the Sega Saturn. I'm not sure exactly what these are. I just don't like that mode. Okay. Interesting. This is new. Here we go. Okay. I have to like unplug it and get it reset. Unfortunately, there's like no real instruction manual at all for how this stuff works. It's just like, here you go. Here's the product. How do you assemble it all together? Here's your product. It's like, oh, come on. But if you look down like at Axel's feet where it says 1992, if you're on like standard, I wish I had those standard composite cables, it just looks, it's a blur. Like you can barely read it at all. You can barely make out the numbers. It's such a travesty. I need to find my old Sega Genesis cables just to do a comparison of the two. But I mean, this looks absolutely amazing. Let me double check the bottom, make sure I'm not, yeah, I'm just clipping off the bottom junk part that's over scanning. Now, the RetroTINK-2X does also support S-Video, so I'll be testing that out on the Sega Saturn. I'm going to be switching to that in a little bit as well. But if you have, like, any games, if anyone's lurking and wants to see me play on this thing, audio pops and all, like I said, I apologize about the crackling audio. It's a short somewhere in the cable for the audio line. Just let me know. This is a link to my VG Collect, and it says all the games that I physically own for the Sega Genesis since I'm playing on an actual console right now. But if there's anything you want to let me see, just like, or want to see here or having played, just let me know. Take a look at there and type it in the chat, and it's all good. Let me check something real quick. There we go. That probably looks a little bit better. I forgot that the HD Retrovision cables have a switch for brightness. So that's like on. I was thinking, man, this looks too bright. That looks a little bit better. I said, just the detail on these cables are absolutely amazing. And this upscaler does a great job. I am impressed. There are some problems with it still. Like I said, there's like no instruction manual on how to operate it, what does what. Nothing's marked. If you go to the website, it's not much help either. They're just like, here it is. It does these things. Good luck. So My Life in Gaming did a review on it like last year. And that's like your main source of information for what does what, really. I had to watch the video again to find out, you know, what button does smoothing or what. And The other thing I have is that the connectors that go into the board are pretty loose. Like, they do wiggle. Like, when you plug in your audio cables and your video cables, you do see it wiggle and move, so you gotta be really careful. Don't just jam it in there. There's like nothing reinforced on this, on the plugins, so you have to be really, really careful with this when you plug it in. Dude, come back here. Let me murder you with a pipe. Somehow everybody's okay with pipe murder. They're perfectly fine if they're just swinging around, cracking skulls. Not cracking, you actually crush a skull with one of these things, but it's a different world we live in. Alright, since I don't have anybody typing anything in chat, I'm going to do a quick audio test by pulling it up on my phone, so you're going to hear, like, basically echoing. Like I said, it's the only way I can really tell how loud everything is without feedback from you in the chat, because I don't know if anyone's watching. So, let me kill this guy real quick. There we go, so I don't want everybody bugging me. Alright. Oh, here they come. So let's see. There we go, so I don't want everybody bugging me. Alright. Oh, here they come. So let's see. Alright. Okay, so it seems like the audio's kind of okay. Looks like the game might be able to come up a little bit more. Yes, it is. Streets of Plagiarism. What's up, Ronnie? So, since you're here, is the audio levels okay? So I have no idea. I tested on my phone, seemed like it's okay. Could be too quiet or too loud, I'm not quite sure. But I will say that, like I said, the HD RetroVision cables, you're going to hear popping because the cables have a short in them. I'm pretty sure I told you that earlier. But there's a short in the audio cable somewhere for this, which ticks me off because, I mean, these are not cheap cables. I spent like $55 on them, and now the place I ordered them from is charging $65 for them because HD RetroVision's not making any more currently. So they're now officially a limited item. But the RetroTINK looks amazing. I mean, you pair these things up with that, it just looks great. I mean, this is like real hardware. It looks almost like I'm emulating it, at least on my end. Stabby, stabby. Come closer. Jump kick. Yeah, so you take this with the RetroTINK-2X. It looks, like I said, it looks absolutely amazing. I'm always stunned by this. Because the Genesis was just like god-awful for output. I mean, if you have a way to like RGB mod it or SCART cables, by all means do it. The HD RetroVision cables are a way to do this. Like I said, don't expect any support or anything. Expect the prices for it to be really overpriced. And with the RetroTINK, the biggest problem I have with it right now is that the cable, like the ports you use to plug in, like your consoles, is kind of loose. It's like you go to plug in like your audio and your video, you can see the port actually move on the board, which has me really worried. So you got to be really careful plugging your stuff in. You just can't go jamming it in because there's like zero reinforcement. So I'm like really worried that something's just gonna break right off and I'm gonna have to try to resolder it or something. Gymkata for Genesis would be awesome. Just Gymkata anything in general, really. Yes, so if there's any Genesis games that you want to see, this is the list I have. These are the actual physical games I own, so you want to see me play something? Just let me know. I'll grab it off the shelf, pop it in. Also planning on doing some Sega Saturn and Super Nintendo as well. Now, unfortunately, the Sega Genesis and Saturn share the same cable. It's literally an adapter for the cables I'm using right now that plugs it into the Saturn. So it's like, it's multi-use. Why did you do that? There we go. Bam! Grab the paw? What? What are you yelling? I don't understand. I'm old and confused. One of the things I was thinking about playing a while ago, and I just remembered right now because I'm playing this game because I grabbed it off the shelf just to test it, is Streets of Rage remake or revival or whatever it's called. Basically, where like fan game basically made like combined like all the games together into one new one on the PC. It's kind of cool. How did you grab me from off the same plane? Not the same plane, a different plane. Okay, so you can just grab you from nonsense. There we go. Yeah, I'm not impressed by it either. I'm really worried by it. It doesn't look that great, and from what I saw, it just looked like major juggles. So, we'll have to see about it. Oh yes, gold bar is just laying around randomly in oil drums. I too have that problem. It's like, oh, not another money bag. Well, people did complain, and they're like, well, you just don't know. I mean, you just don't get the art style. It looks amazing. Why you gotta hate on stuff just because it's different? It's not the 16-bit era. You know, it's like, things can't be the way they're supposed to be back then. You just hate everything. It's like, no, it's legitimately concerning. I mean, all we've seen of it as well is literally like a 4-second gameplay. And that's it. Like, no, nothing else. You know, we've seen screenshots, and that was it. It's not CalArts, at least, I'll give it that. Alright, so let's switch out to a different game. Let's grab something else off the shelf. Let's see. Ah, yes, here we go. Game actually I played the other night on emulator on RetroArch, and I learned something really cool, is that the frame rate for this game is tied into processor speed. So if you can overclock it, the frame rate improves. You can make it run like almost 60 frames a second, which is kind of cool, really. Electronic Arts, before we became all evil. Okay, looks like this game doesn't have an overscan problem. I love this game, it's just a lot of fun. A lot of people tell me that they like the first game, but I just like, you know, the third game for me is like my most favorite one. Of the classic Genesis ones, at least, I should say. Now, this game's kind of interesting is that the other games had music and engine sounds. In this game, it's one or the other. You can either have... If you turn off the music, then you can hear the engines. So you turn the music off, you have the engines on. You turn on the music, you can't hear the engines. It's a weird choice. I'm not sure why they did it that way. Hey, Nimix. Welcome back. Good to see you. I'm actually playing on a real Sega Genesis. With terrible audio, because unfortunately the HD Retrovision cables are crap. For the audio, at least. This one's shorted out. I don't know what's wrong with it. I don't know how to fix it, because I don't know exactly where it's at, and HD Retrovision have stopped basically making their cables, so I doubt that they're going to try to fix it. Even if I were to like pay money to send it to them to have them look at it, they probably wouldn't do it at all. But yeah, so I'm playing on actual systems right now. If there's a game you want to request for the Sega Genesis, let me know. Just take a look through there and let me know in chat. And I'll be happy to put it in there and give it a go. What's that password? Let's see. CPU0F. Is this the code that doesn't work right? Maybe. We'll find out. Password A valid. I love that. It doesn't say password valid or password good. Password A valid. Alright, good to know. Superbike, since I'm cheating. Let's see. 160 horsepower. I remember there was a crazy bike. I could have sworn there was. It had like 200 horsepower in this game. It was just... You would just go ridiculously way too fast. Yep, so I'm using the RetroTINK-2X. Looks amazing. It's $100 versus like I think it's like the OSSC is like the nearest competitor for like upscanners, like for upscalers, and that's like $200 I want to say, 200, 250. Then you have like the Framemeister, which is like $350. So this is a pretty affordable way to do it, but it's only one guy making these. So I literally had to wait like 4 months in order to get mine, just about. Wow, there's some weird overscan going on the sides of this game. It runs pretty well. Like I said, you pair up the HD Retrovision cables with this line doubler, it just looks so crisp and amazing. Super Nintendo, I have the HD Retrovision cables for that as well, for the Super Nintendo. It still looks good, but it's not nearly as impressive as the Sega Genesis. So the Genesis had terrible video output. If you can RGB mod your Genesis, it can look really amazing, like either through SCART cables or an actual RGB mod. You can make the Genesis look absolutely freaking amazing. So tonight I pretty much plan to play, pardon me, some Sega Genesis games, like I said, with popping audio. I apologize about that. Some Sega Saturn as well, and Super Nintendo. So I think the first race is only like 5 miles or so. Oh, almost wiped out on that one. So with this game, what they do is, like, there's only 5 tracks to this game, but the harder you go up in difficulty, the longer the races are. Like, so the starting off races are only like 5.5, 5.6 miles, but by the time you reach like level 5, which is the final levels for the game, you're having races go on over 10 miles, if I remember correctly. I mean, they go on for a long time, so of course the AI becomes more aggressive, more traffic, more police showing up, better bikes, everyone's going faster, and the races just go for a long, long time. So it's kind of an interesting way to do it, because you've seen all the races before. You know, you've seen all these tracks, all 5 tracks, but then it just gets longer and longer, so you have to kind of go like, okay, maybe there's a jump over here I can hit, or you know, there's a couple turns around here, there's pedestrians going to be going, you want to avoid those, things of that nature, but then it just adds on more to it. Hey, it's Friendly Tiger, how's it going, buddy? Haven't seen you in a while. It's going alright. Just mess around, I have my actual Sega Genesis hooked up today, and we're going to be also doing Sega Saturn and Super Nintendo. So if there's a Genesis game you want to see me play, look through my list. That's a collection of all the games that I have for with this Sega Genesis. Let me know and I'll pop it in and play it. Alright. Right now we're doing some Road Rash 3. This is one of my favorites. Like I said, it's like Road Rash 3 is my personal favorite of the Road Rash games. I know a lot of people like Road Rash 2, but 3 for me is just something about it just kind of clicked. And of course I'm cheating, so I have like the fastest bike possible and all the upgrades, and everyone else is on level 1, so... So something kind of interesting I discovered, I played this about 2-3 days ago on emulator on RetroArch, and you can overclock the processor, the 6800 processor, in RetroArch. So I discovered that the frame rate for this game is tied to the processor speed. So it's not like an artificial design to limit it to be this fast. This is just as fast as it can go. It's limited by the Genesis, like 7 megahertz, I think it was. Oh, I'm gonna hit something. So when you start overclocking it, you can get better frame rates. I was running at like almost 60 frames per second. But if you go, I think I was doing like a 50% overclock. If you go anything past that, the controls, like the game starts acting really funny. Like the controls don't start working right. You start kind of jittering all over the place. But it was fascinating to see. I was like, I had no idea that that was the case. It never occurred to me, because like Road Rash, I thought that was just like more of a stylistic choice, because Road Rash, oh, this is gonna be bad. Road Rash 1 and 2 were also the same way, with like the kind of choppy graphics where the frame rates were like 15 frames per second. Like I said, it just blew me away that everything's tied to the processor. Yeah, in this game, if you get knocked off your bike, you gotta go all the way back. So I'm now in 4th place. But like I said, the fastest bike in the game so far, so not gonna be much of an issue. Unless I crash again, which is a very real possibility, just like that. I remember 2-player being a lot of fun. My brother and I would play that on 2-player. I think it was split screen. Big air. Oh, I wanted to hit that other ramp. I'm getting like really close to the finish line too. There we go. I was like, oh no, it's like I'm gonna get past at the last second. Alright, let's do one more race and then I'll switch up games. But yeah, so far, like I said, the RetroTINK-2X that I'm using right now, I got today. I really do like it. I am impressed with what it can do. When I switch over to the Sega Saturn, I'll use these cables still, but then I'm going to switch over to S-Video, just so we don't have to deal with the audio popping. But it's, like I said, for me so far, it's worth its money, despite the other problems it has. Like, there's literally, like, no instruction manual for, like, what button does what. how to put it together, because you do need to do some assembly, like there's a plexiglass cover and stand, that you got to put together, and there's like no directions for it whatsoever. So I had to look up My Life in Gaming's video on it and pause the screen when they showed it off to see how they made theirs and replicate it by visual instead. Plus I also had to watch it just to see like what the buttons did, because they detailed everything, like okay, you press this button one time, it activates smoothing, and then the other time turns it off, and because like there's like zero documentation on this. Like even if you go to the website for the RetroTINK, it doesn't really tell you. It's just like, here it is. Good luck with that. I was like, maybe I can miss the tree. No. I nailed it. Okay, on the road, please. Thank you. Why is there a log in the middle of the road? I mean, it's Germany, so we'll give them some things here, but... There was another game in the series. It's not a Road Rash game, but it's like kind of like in the same vein of it. It's called Skitchin. It was basically like Road Rash, but with rollerblades. And I want to say that you could also grab onto like passing trucks like behind you, like our cars would be passing. You could grab onto their bumpers and like get speed up that way. I'll have to populate an emulator one of these days. Race should be just about over. There we go. Alright. So, does anyone have any suggestions for what game I should play next? Let me know. Or I'll just pick something at random. Sonic 2. That I can do. And we look at the lovely color bars. Plop. Alright. This out. Okay, and Sonic 2. I'm gonna take it out of its case. Although personally, my favorite is Sonic the Hedgehog 3. For me, that was like the ultimate. 2 is pretty good, though. It's pretty much like an unwritten rule or law of the Sega Genesis that if you own a Sega Genesis, you have to own Sonic 2. It is a requirement. You do not want to go to video gamer jail for not owning a copy of Sonic 2. You're going to jail, Nimix. Going to jail now. Alright, so let's change it up here so we can get rid of the bottom overscan so we don't have too much that way. And let's raise up on the top. And looks about right here. Okay. And I'm off to a great start. I is a Sonic Master. I am so good at this game, it's amazing. I know you may be asking yourself, how do I get as good as you? I'm sorry, I just can't divulge those secrets. Pardon me. I remember way back in the day, which was a Wednesday. Anytime you go back in the day, it's always a Wednesday. Like when Sonic and Knuckles came out, I'm like, man, this game is like really hard. Why is that? I was like, why did they make this game so hard compared to like Sonic 3? And then like you learn like years later from internet and people talking because they're no longer working at Sega that it's actually the other half of Sonic 3. They had to split the game into 2 parts because it was just too big to fit on one cart, which is crazy. Now they just sell it to you as DLC, but it's like they sold it off as 2 different games and it's literally one game all complete, which is why you can lock the 2 together and have save states. Because I never liked Sonic and Knuckles. I was thinking like it's kind of like Sonic 3 but like harder, and it just didn't feel right to me, especially how the game started off, but then you learned like, oh, it's actually part of Sonic 3. That makes sense. Well, I'm glad. I mean, because water levels and ice levels in Say Nachos are like my worst things ever about video games. 3 things: water levels, ice levels, and escort missions. And God help you if you have an underwater ice level with an escort. Yeah, like, the water level in Sonic 3 is not bad. But I mean, like, the one in Sonic 1 is just like, ooh. To me, that is just like, it's pretty much like I wanted to shut off my Sega Genesis at that point. What I remember about, like, Sonic 1, because I didn't own a Sega Genesis as a kid, like, we had to rent it, and then, like, I didn't buy a Genesis until I was in high school, and that was, like, 98 when I bought it, finally. So, you know, like, the Sega Saturn and PlayStation were out, and Nintendo 64. But what always bugged me about it was that Sonic the Hedgehog, everyone's like, he's so fast, but it's like, if you play Sonic 1, the first level's kind of fast, and then the rest of it's like really, really slow. Like it's slow platforming. And of course, that's what they try to correct with like Sonic 2, is make it a lot faster, which they did. Like a lot more speeding and running around. Pardon me. Oh no, no, no! Definitely not the Sega Genesis 3. I knew about that. Wow, I didn't know that these bonus things were timed. I always thought they stayed open. I learned something today. No, I'm right now running off a Model 2. It's another thing I learned, like I said, because for the longest time, like, I thought Genesis was just god-awful for sound, and kind of is for certain games, in my opinion. Some games do it better than others, but then I learned that, like, certain models of the Sega Genesis had god-awful sound processors. Like, the Genesis that I bought for my friend back in '98 was a Model 1, which had, like, you know, the headphone jack, so you can actually output it to a stereo system, but it had, like, the worst, hands down, the actual worst processor for sound you could put into it. So, I used to think that all Genesis games just looked and sounded terrible, but it was just the unit that I had, really. So then my friend had done a lot of research. He lives in an area where there's a lot of retro stores and games, because where I live, there's not. And he's like, I'll get you a good Model 2, was like, send me the money for it, I'll buy you a Model 2 with good sound processor and video, everything. And it's like, it's literally night and day. It changed my entire opinion on the Genesis. So then I started looking up, like, okay, what about this Genesis 3, the Model 3 revision? And yeah, that sounds like garbage. And then the worst of all was the CDX combination, the Genesis and CD, Sega CD together all in one. That is like, that's like At Games level, just about. It's not as bad as what At Games sounds like. They're bad emulation consoles, but it's close. I mean, it's like super close. Yeah, so the Model 2 is definitely the way to go, but even then with the Model 2 you can get some models that don't have the best sound processors on them, which is... I don't know why Sega did that, to be honest. It's really weird. Because you can have some games sound really great and then other ones just sound like total garbage. Let me remember what it is here. Sega sound differences, I think it was. Here we go. Yeah, this is by Retro RGB. They went through and literally like tested every single one of the different Genesis, how you can identify them. There's like basically it's like a quick little mod there, like best version of the Sega Genesis to get. And I think on that same page I just linked to, it has like more detailed section for it that you can go to or Google search, because I know it's in here that they've done it, where it's like they literally break down every single model of the Sega Genesis to get the difference of the sounds. They have sound clips, everything. It's just like, holy crap. It's really shocking, like how different that everything could be just for one unit, because Sega just kept making so many different revisions to it. I'm just glad that everything looks the way it is. I mean, I haven't really noticed it too much right now because I've been busy talking and having conversation and sound effects, but I'm using the RetroTINK-2X right now for the line doublers, and I also have the HD Retrovision cables, but there's a short in the audio line, unfortunately, so it causes some cracking and popping you may hear occasionally. But I mean, it just looks amazing, which is why I'm playing on physical console tonight. Usually I just do emulated, because everything just looked terrible, so it's like, wow, this actually looks really, really good. Too bad that the audio cable is shot and HD Retrovision they don't know how to run a business, so good luck trying to get it fixed or new cables. Oh, this part, I hate it. Tails just died. Oh yeah, like I said, I was shocked when I learned that too. I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. Because I used to think that, the Sega Genesis had terrible sound and video was garbage, and it turns out that there's so many different variables that can cause that. And I'm like, really? It was like, well, that just skewed my entire reality for what I thought of the Sega Genesis for so long, because I didn't care about the Genesis. I owned it. There's a couple games that I owned that I wanted to have in my collection, but I didn't really care. I didn't think it was that great. Ah, crap. I'm dead. But then, of course, you can kind of make the comparison that console makers are doing that now with the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X. But the thing is that you know that you're getting better video for the new ones. But it's kind of ticked me up to the point where I'm not going to buy a PlayStation 5 when it comes out, just because I bought a launch PlayStation 4. And then all of a sudden you have, PlayStation 4 Pro and all the games run better on it, and I'm screwed because I own a launch one and I'm not spending another $400 to buy a Pro. And I also have PT on my PlayStation 4, so there's ways you can re-download it again on a new system, but it's pretty wonky to do, and I don't want to risk losing the game forever. And I don't feel like spending out like another, $300, $400 after trade-in. So it's like, literally, it's like, okay, like Resident Evil 4, it runs pretty much close to 60 frames per... Or Resident Evil 2, the remake, the new one that I haven't played yet because I'm broke as hell. Like, you play it on the PlayStation 4 Pro, it runs closer to 60 frames per second. You play it on the stock system like I have, the launch system, and you're... I was saying, I wonder if I hit the arrow. And you're like running 30 to 50 frames, like you will not hit 60. It annoys me that the console makers have done that this generation. Just like, okay, after 2 years, we're going to make an entirely different system that runs and plays games better, instead of just having things like the Xbox 360 where they added an HDMI support. That was nice, but you can still do 1080p through component cables. It's either component or composite, keeping those two mixed up, which I really shouldn't, being in IT, but just like the whole thing of like, okay, we're gonna have different we're gonna have games literally play different. Like Nier Automata, one of my favorite freaking games. I can't recommend more than enough. Like I said, it's like, once again, PlayStation 4 Pro, that runs the game just about constant 60. And if you play it on consoles, like you played on the base unit like I have, you're running around 40 frames. It's like a, hey, you bought a system? Screw you, you didn't buy the right one. We're gonna let people now who came late to the party have better systems and play better than you. Oh, the parallax scrolling. That's a weird option, weird choice for it. Oops, probably should hit jump on that, huh? Nothing will get me running faster than any sound in the world than the Sonic drowning music. If you put me on a 100-meter dash starting line with Usain Bolt, and if I have earbuds playing that music, I will break the record by 4 seconds. I'll come in like 100-meter dash at like 5 seconds flat, just to get that music to stop. It is like the worst panic-inducing music. Oh, great. So water levels, let's take a fast game and slow it down. That's a brilliant idea. I did play Rocket Knight, like, through emulators. I never owned it. And, like, the air bases I was stationed at, because I grew up in the military, didn't have a couple of those games, so I didn't never really got to play them in their heyday until, like, emulators became a thing. Which was kind of interesting, because, I mean, emulators started to really come onto their own around 1998? So it's like, you could literally, like, oh great. You could literally play the last generation of games on your computer back then, like, back when games were still able to be bought in stores. So Atomic Robot I don't remember playing, but I did play the Rocket Knight game, or Sparkster. Or was Sparkster the Super Nintendo sequel to it? Because I remember there was a sequel, they named differently. I think Rocket Knight was the first one, and then Sparkster was the sequel. Thank you. Hey, I got to go fast again, alright. Yeah, I mean, emulators were they were interesting when they first came out. Because it was like, okay, it's like, here, a lot of times, I mean, you gotta think, like, now emulators, like, for Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, they've been perfected pretty much. But I mean, back in the day, it was like, you'd have weird glitchy stuff going on, they couldn't play games just right. But it was an amazing thing to be able to play a game on your computer at home. Like, suddenly you have, like, the entire library of Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Nintendo at your fingertips. Even arcade ROMs. Like, Callus was, like, the first arcade emulator I remember playing. And it's like, holy crap, I can play Street Fighter 2 at home on my keyboard. You know? It was like, whoa! It was mind-blowing. And I think it was K-Gen was one of the first ones I remember, like, the earlier days for it, that, like, I got to play Contra Hardcore, Comic Zone, things of that nature. And back then we had, like, Sidewinder gamepads, of course, which is like now of course the Xbox 360, Xbox One controllers work, you plug them in, they work that way, you're all fine with it, but back then you had to use a Microsoft Sidewinder, and that compatibility was not guaranteed. So it was quite the trip back then. Alright, let's switch it up to some Sega Saturn games. That's gonna be fun. So I need to work on getting that all switched up. we'll put on this awesome little music video without music here while I talk and continue to do it. So what really impressed me about emulators way back in the day, though, however, continuing on my rant, was when the Nintendo 64 emulator first dropped. It was Ultra HLE, I believe it was called. It was like 1997. And I could play Mario 64 on my computer. It was really clunky because you had to use your keyboard because there was like no analog controls back then and so forth. I could play it on my keyboard and have it look better than it did on the system itself. And same thing, like I was playing Legend of Zelda, like Ocarina of Time, on my computer, even though I owned the physical cart. And that was like the first time that like emulators were active when the system was still active itself. And for me, that was a game changer. For me. Let's unplug this. Cables everywhere. Let's see. So I'm gonna plug in the adapter. Knock stuff over. Okay, that's good. Now I need a power cable. Crawl on the floor and unplug things and plug stuff in. Alright. Ouch. Jinx this up here. Oh, well, that's the thing. It's like I sold my Super Nintendo to get my Nintendo. Actually, I sold a lot of the games for the Super Nintendo in order to get the Nintendo 64, and I got it early, so that was pretty awesome. It was great because I got my hands on a Nintendo 64 like 3 months before it launched in the States. It was the Japanese version, and I had like people showing up at my house who I didn't know. Like I knew them from like high school, and they were like showing up at my door, like, "Hey man, heard you got a Nintendo 64." I'm like, "Yeah." Can I come in? No. No, you can't. Too bad, so sad. Alright, so give me a minute here. I will be right back. I'll play some more Chrono Trigger music. I'll be back in a minute. Just gotta hit the restroom. So hang tight, and we'll play some Sega Saturn games. In the meantime, also, let's see. Let's pull this up. Let's get the Sega Saturn ones I have. I have a lot of import games because that's where all the good games were at for the Sega Saturn. So that's the list of my Japanese games that I own, and here are the American ones. Alright, so I'll be back in a minute or two. Hang tight. Now I want to get in a fight. Well, at least Chrono Trigger. So one of the things I've always kind of said about my Twitch channel is I don't really want to play RPGs because I feel like they're kind of boring to watch other people. It's more of a you should be playing experience. But I'm probably going to break that own rule and play a Super Nintendo RPG that I have, which is not Chrono Trigger. I mean, I love Chrono Trigger, but it's not going to be that game. It'll be something different. Alright, so I have the Sega Saturn all hooked up now. And if you were hanging around my channel last month, my stream last month, there was a game that I was playing because I love full motion video games. I'm like the two people on the planet who do. And I played a little game called Double Switch. Because it just been re-released. And yeah, so I was like, okay, cool. And then I was not happy because they just botched the port entirely. So I'm going to be playing the Sega Saturn version. And I had to, let's see, let's put the switch on this one. Let's see, I might have to turn on the brightness switch. There we go, that looks a little, oh, that looks a little funky. Okay, there we go, that's better. So, yeah, so let's take a look. Saturn. I had to set up the, I had to change the battery. Sega Saturns take 2032 as the flat batteries, and unfortunately mine died, which is not really too unusual, really. They tend to go pretty quickly. Let's see, 1994, no, let's put that up to the right date. So, Shin Butoden, if you want to play that one, I can play that a little bit here, Ronnie, not a problem. There we go, 2019. 9/27. Bow. Yeah, 1994 is the time. So yeah, we're playing the Sega Saturn port of Double Switch. Like I said, Double Switch is like one of my favorite FMV games of all time. I love FMV games. And I do have a action replay plugged in. Pardon me. Just so I could play all imports, because the Sega Saturn had a lot of great games that just never got ported over to the West, which is a real shame. There's some crazy choices too. There's a game called RPG I have called Shadows of the Tusk. It was never left Japan. It was never intended to leave Japan, and the game is 95% in English. It's an RPG. It's like releasing a game for the United States, but having it entirely in Polish. It's like, what? It's kind of a weird thing. But it's what they did. They have an RPG that didn't leave Japan, and yeah, it's almost all completely in English. And that's where I learned a lot of things, too. Not only were there amazing games that never came out from left Japan to the States, because I used to think, the Sega Saturn, who would want that? But then all the good games were in Japan. But a lot of them also had English option languages, too. So you could be playing, it's a Japanese game, I have the Samurai Showdown 3 and 4, but they have an English option to flip on, and everything, the entire story is in English. It's okay, go figure. Okay, so L switches room, arm, disarm traps, got it. Yeah, I had a friend who had one. And I had rented it a couple times from Blockbuster, which is another I'm old thing. But it wasn't until 1998, it turns out, that I got my Sega Saturn. And I love to tell the story because it's so insane. I told there was I think it was Software Etc. back then. It was either Software Etc. or Babbage's before they all got bought up by GameStop and made them all one type deal. They had Sega Saturn there. And they also had import games, and they were just trying to get rid of them because nobody wanted a Sega Saturn. No one was going to buy these import games whatsoever. They even had the key for it was called an ST key, which is the 4 megabyte cart you needed to play certain games. So I told my parents, I want a Sega Saturn. They have it here. It's real cheap. Go for it. If you want to buy me something for Christmas. So they did. They got me the Sega Saturn, which came with Virtua Fighter 2, Daytona USA, and Virtual Cop. And then they also got the ST key so I could play, import games on it. They got me Samurai Showdown 3 and 4, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and Deep Fear. All and the arcade stick as well for $120. All of it together. They just wanted it gone out of the store. So it's like they literally got everything. I got it for like $120 for Christmas. I was like, holy crap, best Christmas ever. Now the thing is, like, my brother and I had played X-Men vs. Street Fighter in our arcade that we had there. I mean, we played about every other day or so. We go to the arcade, hit it up, and play it. And all of a sudden, we have the arcade perfect version at home. We're like, don't have to go out and spend money on this anymore. So, I mean, it's like, and of course, X-Men vs. Street Fighter here in the States was a completely different game.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Eddie. I need your
help. Hi, Eddie.
This is my building. And since the neighborhood really sucks, I've built all these traps and security systems to protect the people who live here. The problem is some bonehead locked me in the basement and cut off my controls. Except they forgot
for the longest time until the new remastered version of this game came out, this was the best video quality you could get for this game.
You and me are friends, right? You gotta help me. Anyway, I designed the whole system. Now this is the lobby. That's Elizabeth. She's the manager.
You were friends,
There's
right?
a problem. Don't expect her to deal with it, okay?
Got any drugs? I mean, you're not a cop, right?
For each room by pressing the start button. Oh yeah. To get me out of here, you got to get the number from each of these power boxes. Now they flash on when anybody opens them, so you keep your eyes peeled, okay?
Ooh, I just realized I can play Deep Fear now. Deep Fear is awesome.
I don't know what he's up to, but I don't like anybody snooping around my place, okay? This is Alex's room on the second floor. She's a new girl in town. She says she's a journalist. I think she likes me. Lyle, the handyman.
Oh, Arlie Army, rest in peace.
Everything up around here. Trap him whenever you can. There's an emergency.
There's someone in my apartment. Stay here and cover me while I check things out.
Game Grumps recently played this, and it was infuriating. Because, of course, it's Game Grumps. They don't read anything, they don't do anything at all, and Aaron sucks at video games, but at least they pulled up the Nintendo's playthrough of this game in order to get to the ending, which I thought was great. Just to, like, show people the ending, because people got invested with it. Okay, missed him. But if you've never seen this game before, basically, it's like, think like Night Trap, but a hell of a lot easier and a lot more fun. Basically, there's a mystery going on, like, people are trying to find out, like, where this hidden treasure is inside the building. There's these bad guys showing up, there's, like, the mafia, then there's, like, some secret cult, and, of course, you're trying to get your friend out of the basement because he's locked in there. You gotta find 4 codes to free him. And you got all this crazy things going on, but I love this game. This is one of my personal favorite 2 games that I love for FMV games. It's tied between Double Switch and Fox Hunt for PlayStation 1, which unfortunately does not emulate well. There's problems on emulators with it. And I need to replace the laser drive, like the laser on my PlayStation, which is like $25, but I'm broke and unemployed because I need a back fusion. So once I get money to get a replacement laser, I'll definitely be playing Fox Hunt on stream again because I love that game.
Hey, stop scoping me. If I want your help, I'll ask for it.
Okay.
Got it?
Sorry. Why is no one weirded out that there's the cameras everywhere spying on him?
This package came for you. At least I think it's for you. The label.
This guy's fireplace. We listen to a band play some music. And this guy's gonna try to turn off the power box. It's cheesy, but I just love these games to death. Oh, missed him. He was a column. He just likes to dance for some reason. But yeah, it's like Night Trap, but it's more fair. It really is. Okay, first code. Need to see this. Okay, good. This guy's window. Yep. And he's dead. I just knocked a guy out of a second story window. I don't think he's going to be coming back from that. Yeah, Night Trap is ridiculously hard. And it's just like... And you also have like changing codes. I mean, it's like... So if you've never played Night Trap before, you have traps in the same thing here, but there's no indicator for when you need to hit the trap, like what to trigger it, which this game corrects. You can see the floor panels that they step on and the sound. And also Night Trap, they switch the codes. There's like different colors like red, green, blue, orange, yellow. And the characters will occasionally say, hey, we need to change the security code to orange. Okay, if you don't know that, all of a sudden your traps are going to stop working. And you got to try to figure out which ones they are and try to save everybody. It's a neat idea, but it fails in execution. And Double Switch really, really corrects a lot of that. And that's the same thing, like, you can't play Night Trap, really, without a walkthrough. If you don't have a walkthrough, you're hosed. But, I mean, that's why I like this game, because it's like Night Trap, but more refined and fair. It's a lot more fun, in my opinion. Everyone's trying to get that statue, it turns out, so... And this is also Debbie Harry, the lead singer of Blondie.
May I help you?
Yeah, we're looking for Brutus.
That guy's with the mob. He works for Mario. And Luigi.
Oh, no. Boom. Yeah, all right. Good job. Good job. That should slow him down. Very nicely done.
232.
Yes, that guy's name is Luigi, and he works for Mario. Fico! Good to see you, buddy. You are watching Night Trap on the Sega Saturn. I've never trapped this guy before. I want to see what happens.
Duh. You just bagged Jeff. You know Jeff, the singer? Do that again, and you're gone.
Nah, he's alive. None of these traps are fatal. Yet. Yeah, so there's a remastered version of this. You can buy it on Steam or PlayStation 4's digital download, and I am still waiting for my physical copy to come with PlayStation 4. The limited run games really sucks. Oops, missed the timing on that. So, like, yeah, we're gonna have it shipped out to you before the release date of the game on digital, so you can all play it together. And I'm screwed. Alright, because I forgot that this is a different timing than the new versions I've been playing, so literally game over. Start over. You gotta do him first, and then the guy in the upper left. It's like one after the other. But yeah, so you can buy this on Steam or PlayStation 4. It's digital downloads. It's remastered video, so it looks really nice. But for the longest time, this was the best version of the game that you could get.
All right. Are you sure you're ready for this? I mean, you gotta be quick. You gotta go where the action is and use the traps. That's what they're there for.
Alright, we'll go save Alex. Yep, I think you might have seen me play it earlier. It's just better frame rate and video quality. Now, the Sega CD version was on one CD, and the Saturn version I'm playing on was two.
This could be really
Probably just because they had better improved video quality. I think it's like only Act 3 is on the second disc. Act 1 and 2 are on the same disc, if I remember correctly. Yep, it's on PlayStation 4. It's a digital download. But like I said, I bought the physical copy through Limited Run Games, but they were supposed to have it shipped out back on December 7th. They're like, oh, we forgot to contact Sony to ask if we could get our games made. So, and that takes like literally a month to do, even like to make the games and get them processed and going. Like when the game goes gold, it takes about 30 days to complete making a game disc. So, yeah, so I have no idea when it's going to be coming at this point. People are like, well, you should have known. It's like, hey, they lied. They said the game was going to be done by this time, and it wasn't. They're like, well, you should have known better. It's like, well, screw them. I'm not going to buy anything from them ever again, really. Alright, first code. Let's go kill a guy by knocking him out of a window, second story building, he's dead. Oh no, I can just duck! Okay, so these are like apartments that people are living in. One, there's a bunch of cameras there, invasion of privacy, wouldn't fly. Two, why, like, is there something there that stops people from putting a couch on top of a switch? Or maybe a rug or a carpet, so like none of these things would work, so you'd have like a carpeting there and, you know, wall to floor carpeting, and somebody steps on a trap and the trap door opens and they can't fall through because there's carpeting holding them up. I mean, it just seems like it's a really weirdly designed apartment to live in. You have stuff like in here, like a teeter-totter and stuff. Was like, are all these designs, is that stuff that they put in, or are these furnished apartments? I have a lot of questions for a 30-year-old game or 25-year-old game.
May I help?
I told her that that boy is getting Oh no.
Yeah.
I may have met him at some point. Oh yes. Now I know the gentleman you fellas are looking for. He's in room 232.
I think you can do a column trap on somebody here. This guy's teeter-totter. Now this game works a lot better on the Sega Saturn controller because, like, ABC, you have ABC then XYZ directly above it. So it's like kind of like a Street Fighter arcade stick layout. So the ABC arm traps and XYZ directly above each one disarms that same trap. Whereas like when you play it on like PlayStation 4 or on an Xbox 360 controller on Steam, it works like, you know, A, B, X, Y, or just like that, but then you have to use the triggers to arm and disarm. Can get a little funky on your brain. Trying to remember what is what. And he just gets knocked over. Okay, here we go. So this is like one after the other. So you gotta go here, then directly to the other one as soon as it shows. Here we go. There we go, because I screwed that up last time.
Blissful.
Love it.
This guy is a lamp. The appropriate response. Okay, this guy's going for the power box. If nobody pulls the power, it's game over. So you gotta stop anyone who's trying to pull the power on you. And then you go up here, it's Luigi, who works for Mario. They put a Mario Brothers joke in this game.
Luigi?
2 weeks are up, my friend.
I got 2 more hours.
Also,
What do
when
you
they
think, I'm
made the
stupid?
remake of this,
I'm
or
gonna
the
believe
latest
there's
version,
gold around
they didn't
here?
have the timing
I'm
notes for this.
telling
They had
you,
to follow
Luigi,
through the
my
Sega
father
Saturn
laid
version I'm
bricks
playing
on
right
this
now and make
building
notes for what
on
one
his
showed up
dying
like at what
deathbed.
time.
He told me
So that's
there
why the
was
time is
treasure buried
really
in this
weird on that
building.
version.
Why am I?
Okay, so she's a column.
You want
Anything here? No, he's fine. Okay, so this guy you gotta save with
Throw
a
your
punch
face
or he gets
all
shot
over
and
this
killed.
room. You know what, Brutus? Time's up.
You tell Luigi and Mario their days are numbered.
Like I said, Super Mario joke. It was the 90s. Okay, this guy's going for the last code I need. There we go. He's out of the room. Yep, so everyone gets missed, but at least I got this guy here to give me the right one, so I'll thank him by killing him. Have a nice life.
Ah, great, great. You got the code number, great. Oh, you're good. You're very, very good. I'm out of here. All right, let me level with you. Tell you what's really going on around here. I think there's a killer in the building, and I think I know who it is, and I'm gonna nail the sucker. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch the basement camera on for you. Keep an eye on my place. Don't let nobody knows around here. Code numbers.
Woohoo! End of Act 1. Press start to save game. What's your name? Okay, and there we go. Game saved. Oh, cool. Okay, so I thought Act 3 was only on disc 2, but it's actually on. There we go. So, Act 1. Oh, that's a lovely sound. Bling, right in your eardrums. Then after this, we're going to switch up. We're going to do the Dragon Ball Z game that Ronnie name dropped. We'll play that. I can't remember if the game starts you up right into it or not. We'll see real fast. There's a total of 3 acts to this game. So I just did act number 1. Act 3 is really, really short. So if you want to see a game, that's the Japanese games I own. Yep, it drops me right back into the game itself. So that's a Japanese, and these are the American games that I own for Sega Saturn. So I'll be playing Ronnie's game in just a moment. So if you want to see me play anything after that, just let me know. And then I'll also be switching up to Super Nintendo to wrap it up for the evening.
Some devil, you.
Yeah, he's past it. Okay, so basically you can see like a confrontation like, who let you out of here?
Eddie? Hey, why don't you just shut up, okay?
Turns out that they're father and son.
You're gonna get it. You got it. We'll see about that. The old man just doesn't get it, does he?
They have these cult members show up.
How'd you get in?
We are the members of the Society of the Scroll and Key, madam.
There's no scroll here, boys, but I may have a key.
Your father was a member of our secret society. We are here on behalf of his legacy.
This may be the most important find of the decade if it's real.
There it is. A statue.
Get them!
You don't have to save them there. It's entirely optional. But yeah, I mean, it's like the thing is, like I was discussing a little earlier, Fico, is that the Sega Saturn had a lot of great games for Japan, but not the States. I mean, some of the games did not come out here, never left Japan, which is a real shame, which would have done, in my opinion, they still wouldn't have done, like, they wouldn't have, like, done better than PlayStation, but they would have done a lot better than they did, had a lot of these games come out. This guy's lamp. Hey, there's somebody... Okay, still the same guy. Yeah, whenever you see somebody down here in the bottom right corner, always jump to it because it could be a power box. Which I'll show you what happens when they pull it, so we'll just switch games. Oh no!
You let those suckers get to the power box. And now we're all cut off.
Oh no! I suck! So there we go. Alright. Alright, so give me a second here. We're going to switch up the games. Get to look at a lovely color bar, and actually I'll just put this on right now, like I said again, and while I talk and continue to change stuff. Pardon me. Okay. Now we're going to switch over to the Dragon Ball game. Let's put this back. Now there's like one game in my collection I won't play. I have for the Sega Saturn. It is Police Knots, which is a Hideo Kojima game. And the reason why I won't play that is because my copy is sealed and unopened. And I'd rather kind of keep it that way. So one of these days I'll actually play it on emulator, or if I get a pseudo Saturn going, play it through that, because there's actually a full English translation for it now. Alright, let's see. Mapper Hunter. Live. Sabaki, that's a great game. Here we go. Alright, found it. Alright, so this is Dragon Ball Z Shin Butoden. Which not a lot of people have seen. I don't know how much this game is going for right now. Let's take a look at eBay real quick. Unfortunately, a lot of, like, for the longest time, Sega Saturn games from Japan, like Japanese Sega Saturn games, were pretty cheap. But now that they're starting to go up as well, unfortunately. So this game is now around 40 bucks or so. When I bought it around, I think I bought it back in 1999 or 2000, it was like 10 bucks. So I managed to snag it for back then. Alright, so let's switch back over. Action Replay Plus. You can get these from, I think it's playasia.com for like around $30 or so. I need to buy another one. There's so many things I want to buy, but I can't because I'm broke and unemployed. But if you get one of these here, you can actually wipe it and make what's called a pseudo Saturn, and what that allows you to do is basically play burned copies of games for the Sega Saturn. Because even if you have a mod like this, like basically a way to bypass it, the region lockout, it still doesn't play CD copies. So if you make yourself a pseudo Saturn, you can play burned copies of games you can download off the internet, which is really helpful for certain games because games have really jumped up in price for some of them. Like Street Fighter Alpha 3 now sells for over $200, which literally jumped up overnight for no reason. The Final Fight Revenge, I think it's called, that goes for like $600. So Fico, you saw the new movie, so it's really good though, right? So unfortunately, it played here in the States like last week, but I missed it. As far as anime intros go, this one's pretty boring. It's like, okay. Alright, enough of this. I was like, good lord, is it gonna end, or is it gonna keep going? It's like, what am I looking at? It's probably been 20 years since I popped this copy in my Saturn to play it. Alright, press start. Alright, now I gotta stop and translate this. Story... So Mr. Satan mode. You play as only him, I remember. Alright, so then you gotta pick like characters from certain areas. What I do like though is you can actually play as Master Roshi. Oh no, it's a tournament. No! No tournament. Here we go. But you can still pick Mr. Roshi, or Master Roshi. Let's have him play against Mr. Satan. I think this is kind of like comparable to Ultra 22. I think it's the, pardon me, the one that came out on the PlayStation. Yeah, Ultimate Battle 22. I had a copy of it. I didn't have the actual game itself, but I did import... I did import Dragon Ball GT. That was a turd. Turd and a half. other moves do I have for him? Let's see. Nothing wrong with your parents' basement. Trust me, as a 37-year-old man who lives in his parents' basement, is single, and lives with his cat, there's nothing wrong with that. Just, it's fine. Oh god, I'm so lonely. Alright, so let's see. See, a lot of the character portraits are pretty whack. It's like, that looks like Frieza if I were to draw him and like was really, really good, because I'm not. I can't draw for crap. Let's see. Super Saiyan 3. I saw a bird. It was pretty. Let's see. Oh, color blindness, you're coming to bite me back in the butt because I can't tell exactly where I'm at. I gotta say, this is actually kind of responsive. You know, it's pretty responsive for the game. Because I've played, like, other games, like I said, like, God, GT was god-awful. Not just the show, but also, like, the video game itself. I don't know what dash is. Let's try upper button. So this is like a 3-button game. And Goku has, like, a 0 walking speed. This is his walking speed. I thought it was broken for a second. Like, is my controller plugged in? Alright, Nimix, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. Alright, so let's see what other modes we have. Let's try Mr. Satan mode. So if I remember correctly, like I said, you play through the game, like it's like the tournament, like the Ultimate Fighting Tournament or the Budokai, whatever they call it. Budokai Tenkaichi. As Mr. Satan.
前回の天下一武道会でミスター・サタンは2000万ゼニーと引き換えに18号に圧勝した。だが、さすがのミスター・サタンにも2000万ゼニーという大金はそうたやすく用意できるものではなかった。
金は明日お前の家に取りに行く。ちゃんと払わないとぶっ殺すから。
Alright, enough of the story. It's basically, if you've been following the show, it's basically the same thing. It's like, okay, you're being extorted by number 18. It's like doing the Night of the Roxbury Bob almost. So I think like there's different ways for you like to interfere with the match. It's just been like so long since I played this. And this is also like written in like such a weird font that I'm having some problems making out some stuff because I can barely read Japanese. It's like I can understand spoken a lot better than I can reading, so yeah, so you can interfere with the match. So you can like shoot people with a gun, throw a grenade or a banana peel. And you place bets on who you want to win, so I want Legend of Vegeta to win. So if I'm remembering this all correctly, it's been a long, long time. So then you can place like a certain bet, so how much you want to bet, so we'll bet 50. Oh no, gambling for kids! It's like loot boxes of the past. I am outraged. So you're back here, you can go like, yeah, I'm gonna pull out a gun here. Throw a banana peel. No, not you! Goku, I need you to chill, buddy. Yeah, so Goku just decided to go full ham on me here. Not cool. So I lost 50 bucks out of 1,000. Or Zenny, we'll call it. Alright, I gotta put money on 18. Okay, so the gun didn't really work out too well. Let's see what else we got here. I don't know what these are. I like healing, like boost items and stuff, but I know these are like detrimental ones. Let's just bet it all on 18. Let's let it ride. How much can I bet? 90, that's it. Oh, there we go. I'm like, that's it? Alright, we're betting the farm. As if people bet farms and animals all the time. I'm not sure where that phrase comes from, but... Yay, I just won a lot of work for myself in a poker game? What? 18? He's like, don't you dare slip on that, you idiot! No! No. 18, there you go. Trunks? Oh, Trunks, you suck. I'm broke. He's basically saying, oh shit. Uh-oh. He's coming for me. He's gonna cut off my thumbs as repayment. I have to say, I'm really disappointed in Dragon Ball FighterZ that he's not in that. He's in this game from like 20 years ago, but he's not in the newest one. This game came out actually 95. Wow, crap. Basically, Mr. Satan lost all his money to the mob, and now 18 is really pissed off, and because part of her agreement for letting her win, and he's like basically still the champion, is he has to funnel her money. She's basically extorting him. So basically he can keep saying that he's like the world champion. And she just found out that like he's completely broke and can't pay her, so she's kicking your butt. So she's like, I'm here for the money, and he's like, I'm broke. Alright, let's switch it up to Super Nintendo. Final system of the evening. Close that up. Put this here. Yes, I am like super hyped that I have this RetroTINK-2X. It's so much fun. It makes games look so much better. Alright, let's unplug this. I plug in the HD Retrovision cables for Super Nintendo. It has me really concerned because as you're plugging and unplugging stuff into this RetroTINK, that you can see the ports moving. Pardon me. Really has me concerned that this thing is not the most stable. It might break on me. You gotta be like super careful with it. But now they have this, one of the games I definitely plan on playing, and I'll have to dig out all the connections for it. It's the original Xbox game. It's called Metal Wolf Chaos. It's an Xbox game that never left Japan, and in it, you play the President of the United States of America who has to stop a coup from your vice president. And you're in a big giant mech just blowing stuff up. It's absolutely insane. It's all voiced over in English. It's an amazing game that just never came out here in the States for unknown reasons, and I really wish it did. Devolver Digital is actually working on... They showed it off. They announced it like in the trailer during their E3 presentation. But then, like, nothing has come from it since. I thought it was supposed to be out end of last year. Same thing for my neighbor Pedro, and that didn't happen either. Just kind of vanished into nowhere. Alright, so let's pick a game. Let's go with a goodie. So, Super Nintendo is where it's at right now. So, yeah, so probably... I'm thinking, I used to do streams every single day at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but I'm thinking just the way my health is going, probably do every other day. So I'm thinking the next time I stream, I might play Metal Wolf Chaos. I'm really wanting to do that now that I've been talking about. Like, that game is just so crazy. A lot of people haven't seen it, and I have a modified Xbox to play copies like that, so I'll probably do that. But for right now, we're going to switch over to the Super Nintendo with one of my favorite games. If I remember to plug it in, that might help too. Power usually helps systems run. Write that down, kids. There's a test later. Alright. What did the crazy man on the internet say about video game consoles? Oh yes, power makes stuff run. Got it. Alright, here we go. Round 2. Maybe not. I'll try unplugging the RetroTINK, plug it back in. Sometimes it acts a little funky. Nope, got nothing going to it. What is happening here? Got power to system, and I'm looking at nothing right now. Let's switch. Yeah, that's fine. Let's try a game I tested I know worked earlier. Because I did a little test stream earlier, checking out audio glitches and stuff. I got nothing right now. What is happening here? Alright, so troubleshooting 101. Why am I not getting responses from the console? Up. Alright, well this is kind of annoying. Gotta figure out what's going on here. Like I said, tested this earlier and it worked just fine, but of course when you go to stream, that's where the magic doesn't happen. That's where you start having problems. Alright, let's try plugging in the cables again, just make sure everything's in correctly. I am also colorblind too, so I've had things in the wrong way. That's happened before. Audio goes here. Nothing! Alright, so what I'm going to do is violently hurl this across the room. Nah, I'm not going to do anything like that. Alright, so give me a second. I'm going to stop the stream, drop OBS, and bring it back up and see if that helps fix it. So hang tight. I'll be back in about 20 seconds, everyone.